Gemini Man is directed by Ang Lee, of all people, and stars Will Smith as an assassin for the US government. I think it's for the US government, who feels like his skills are starting to slip, and he retires, and after it's revealed to him that he may have been sent to kill innocent people. He himself is targeted for assassination by a younger version of himself, and I think it's supposed to be a secret how there is a younger version of himself, but it's the most obvious and least interesting explanation possible. I didn't like the trailers for this film. It looked really generic. I didn't think the premise was that interesting. Sure, they could have done something interesting with it, who knows, but that didn't seem to be the case, and I was right, but I think my expectations were so low, and I thought it would be a lot worse, that I kind of thought it was okay. It just about scrapes by bad territory, and the actors and a couple of good action scenes save it from being complete garbage. Will Smith as the older assassin is good. I like him and he sells the action pretty well. I did not like him as the younger version of the character. A trained assassin should not be that weepy and shy and childlike, and he pouts in anger way too much. I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Benedict Wong too. They played their parts well, but I thought that both characters became far too heavily involved with Smith's situation far too quickly. It felt very unnatural. It seems like maybe Winstead is going to be kind of love interest. I mean, he's a bit older, but but wait, what was I thinking? We don't do those in movies anymore. And Wong he's a pilot. He's the pilot. He flies them from South American exposition scene to European exposition scene, and anytime Will Smith needs something, it would be impossible for a hunted man on the run to get. He turns to Benedict Wong, who says, "I know a guy." Cut to, they have their own jet. Clive Owen was pretty flat as the villain, and I thought they should have cast a much older actor based on the history of this character. Owen is only 4 years older than Smith, but he was like Smith's commanding officer when Smith was a young man, and he rose that far through the ranks of whatever military outfit they're talking about, then set up a ridiculously powerful private security organization, and then raised the younger Will Smith for like 20-something years, and he and the older Smith looked like they're the same age. I liked some of the action. Mostly I liked the motorcycle chase scene, not the motorcycle fight scene, because there's a motorcycle fight scene in this that just looked silly. There was something really off about the fight scenes. The movements of the characters was just a bit too fast, and it looked very rubbery, like something from a comic book movie from the early 2000s. It felt very CGI and weightless. The main problem was the script, which was not as bad as Rambo Last Blood, but it was along the same lines. It was just so very generic. This story has been done better 100 times before. It's a former secret agent on the run from the government or whatever. It's Bourne. It's the recent Bonds. It actually reminded me the most of Red, only not funny, and the characters aren't retirement age, and the action isn't as good, and at least that a nice romance between Bruce Willis and Mary Louise Parker. See, that's all I want. Just a little something to root for. The young Will Smith aspect of the plot doesn't really feel that important or interesting. At the beginning of the film, we get a lot of character names thrown at us. A lot of different agencies are mentioned. I still don't know who Will Smith worked for, because there are 4 different characters introduced at about the same time that all seem like they could either be the villain, the turncoat, a trusted friend, his boss, his handler, the head of some agency or other, or something. I didn't know what anyone was talking about, and 2 of those characters could have been removed completely. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this has been not an inconsiderable length of screen time, and not only has the younger Will Smith not appeared, he hasn't even been mentioned, and nothing that's been discussed so far makes it seem like this is a plot that would lead to a clone being a major element, or that this is a world where something like that could even theoretically be possible. It doesn't build to the reveal, it just comes out of nowhere, and then it's that movie. Then it's a movie about Will Smith and his clone. I keep saying this, but the whole idea of the younger version of the character trying to kill the older just isn't very interesting. It can be, but there has to be more to it. That's why Looper worked. It had the time travel aspect. They sort of try here when Will Smith talks to his younger self about how he knows everything about him because he is him. But it doesn't make sense. They had completely different upbringings. Why would young Will Smith feel the same way about the world and have nightmares of past traumas that wouldn't have happened? It feels like something that would have been made in the 90s, like Face Off, but without the fun of watching Travolta do an impersonation of one of the most charismatically bizarre character actors on the planet.
Touché.
This concept alone isn't even enough to draw people in, and then they try to focus on how advanced the CGI is and being able to create a young Will Smith. That wouldn't even be revolutionary technology if it was flawless, and it really isn't. When it's dark and he doesn't have to talk much, the young Will Smith looks really good, and then there are the daylight scenes, and they are bad. I found out after they didn't actually use a sort of de-aging technology that they use in the likes of the MCU movies, where they shoot the scenes and then the effects guys do the de-aging in post. Here they constructed a digital version of Will Smith from scratch, so less like Kurt Russell and Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU, and more like Andy Serkis in Lord of the Rings and Planet of the Apes. So if you're wondering how they took a guy who already looks as young as Will Smith does and somehow de-aged him in such a way that is less convincing than Michael Douglas in Ant-Man, that's why. There's also a scene where a guy is completely on fire and it's so fake, it's the worst. I also wasn't able to see it in 3D or the high frame rate because it wasn't available in my cinema. It doesn't seem to be available really anywhere. It was something I was actually kind of looking forward to, because although I heard only bad things about the 48 frames per second Hobbit movies, I never got the chance to experience it for myself, and I kind of wanted to. I was curious. The ending of the movie with the shootout in the, for some reason, completely abandoned town was a complete dud. I think if they had ended with a spectacular and inventive action scene, it could have really helped, but there just wasn't any really imaginative action happening throughout, which is a huge disappointment when you think that this is the guy who made Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and The Life of Pi. It doesn't even have any impressive or memorable visuals, and Ang Lee doesn't do anything to elevate this generic story. If you told me this was some guy who made a pretty good indie movie and then straight away was given a big budget, high concept movie, like they seem to do with so many directors now, I would have believed you. I'm going to give Gemini Man a C-. Watch it on Netflix when it comes out. I didn't hate it, but I was a little bored at some points, but I don't think that it's as bad as other people are saying. Also, this line...
Because what if somebody actually knew what we really are?
...is not in the movie. There is no secret that gets revealed about Will Smith's character being something other than what he seems. And I was waiting for that reveal, so fuck you. Thank you very much for watching my review. Please like, subscribe. It really helps me out, helps the channel grow. Follow me on Twitter at LookToTheMovies. Please comment down below and let me know if you've seen Gemini Man, what you thought of it, if you liked it, disliked it, agree or disagree with any of my points, or if you have any points of your own. I will be back soon with more reviews, and I will see you then.